What's the creepiest thing your child ever said to you?
My son tells me stories of scary Uncle Michael in his bedroom at night. He says he's a gray man that looks like his uncle and he climbs on walls and calls out to him, and one night he tried to eat him. Yep, nightmare fuel.
My little sister had some creepy moments when we were younger. She often claimed that people were in her bathroom at night talking and watching her. She called them Poe and the Tape Monster. There are a couple stories regarding them, both funny and creepy. One night she woke up scared and went to my parents' room to sleep with them. Before she went back to sleep, she used their bathroom, and when she came out she said, "Why are there people in your bathroom, Mommy?" Dad was out of town. Mum still swears this was the scariest thing any of my siblings ever did.
Poe and the Tape Monsters is a solid band name.
My 3-year-old granddaughter said, "Grandma, I just saw a man with no eyes go upstairs."
While I was driving my 4-year-old nephew around, he spent a solid few minutes telling me about the dead body he stashed in my trunk. This was a long time ago, and as far as I know he isn't a serial killer.
Admit it, you checked the trunk.
The second we got to the mall.
My kid keeps talking about the babies in the walls of his bedroom. Very off-putting.
When our little one was 3, she had 2 imaginary friends who lived in the wall. Talk about a creepy thing for a kid to say. We moved, and she has grown older. No talk of that kind of stuff anymore.
Glad to hear that. Yeah, mine is 3. I'm hoping it's just a weird brain invention or something he's heard, misheard, and is repeating. Very odd. He's not scared when he has talked about it in the past though. Although he did go through a big monsters in his room phase. I think this is pretty normal.
Creepy and funny. My youngest once said to me, "I could make 3 baby hands out of your hand meat."
Definitely thought it was more funny than creepy. But when my kid was 2, he was scribbling on a piece of paper and quietly sang, to the tune of "Row, row, row your boat, SCRP, SCRP, SCRP your eyes, SCRP your eyes today."
This reminds me of my daughter. She sometimes sings "The people on the bus go crunch crunch crunch" while she laughs. Do you like burning? The new little girl neighbor.
This is so direct yet vague.
My youngest, was 4, was on the carpet playing with his cars. "Son, I can't wait to get a new house when this house explodes." Me sad face, half listening, sure that sounds. Wait, what? "Son, yeah, when our house explodes, be ready and we'll just run out real fast," and then he turned back to playing with cars like nothing was said. Thankfully that was 5 years ago, and my house has not exploded.
Yet.
Just after my little brother was born, my mom, 3 sister and I were talking about what not to do around the baby. Things like not leaving small toys out or throwing balls around the baby. After a few minutes my sister chimed in and said, "And you don't cut off baby's lips with a sharp knife."
It's good advice.
My mum loves telling me this story about the time I discovered hypnotism. When I was 4, I found out about hypnotism. I don't remember how, but apparently I became fascinated by the idea of having mind control abilities. One day, my mum says my grandpa loaded me into the car for one of our normal grocery store outings only for him to return an hour later, furious. After he calmed down, he told my mum that I refused to stop staring him down in the rearview mirror with a very serious look on my face. He had asked me to stop on several occasions, but said I never really replied. I just kept staring menacingly. Then, he said all of a sudden I looked into his eyes and said, "Papa, I'm going to hypnotize you. I'm going to put my toe in your mouth." My mum said she thought it was funny at the time, but couldn't laugh because my grandfather was seriously so enraged. Edit, just to say thank you to everyone for liking my story. I ended up having my grandfather for 16 more years and he was my best friend.
Thank you for telling this. I just laughed until I could hardly breathe thinking about a toddler mean mugging a grown man in the rearview mirror. I bet your grandpa wanted to fight you.
It was a Saturday morning a few years ago, and my wife and I were still in bed, and she was trying to convince me to make pancakes for breakfast. My oldest son, about 6 at the time, came into the room and agreed with her. He then said, "You should make some for Tyler, too." Now, he had never had imaginary friends, and we didn't have anybody in the house or family named Tyler, so I was curious and asked him who Tyler was. "Tyler is the man sleeping in my bed, *." Anyway, turns out a local teenager had gotten piss drunk the night before, jumped into the local public swimming pool, gotten separated from his friends and wandered into my house, thinking it was his friends, very suburban, all houses very similar, and passed out on my son's bed in his wet chlorinated clothes. My son thought this was fine and went downstairs to watch TV in the living room until he fell asleep on the couch, which was apparently the height of awesome for a 6-year-old. We called the cops. He was incredibly embarrassed, apologetic, and still quite drunk, and they came and took him home.
Almost certainly Tyler's absolute best story now.
When I was about 6 or 7, the house we were renting was going to be sold. My parents instructed us to keep our rooms tidy because people may be walking through the house during showings. I had the idea to take a little box and write "fortunes" on it. Inside were little slips of paper with "fortunes." The idea was that prospective buyers could take a slip of paper to get their fortune, kind of like a fortune cookie. I remember the first couple of slips of paper said stuff like, "You will have good luck." Then the rest of them had some pretty morbid stuff like, "You're going to die." My parents read the slips of paper beforehand, then sat me down and sternly told me the fortune box was a no-go. I was a pretty serious child. It didn't occur to me that a fortune box should be light-hearted. Woman shrugging.
How come you're not waking up tomorrow?
Child says this. You stay up all night out of paranoia and concern. Therefore you didn't wake up because you were already awake.
My ex-father-in-law died a couple years before my daughter was born, so she never met him. He was known as a pretty funny guy, always quick with a one-liner. As strange as it sounds, there were no pictures of him around until my daughter was about 4 years old and my ex-mother-in-law set one next to the urn where his ashes were kept. The first time my daughter saw the picture, she pointed to it and said, "That's Grandpa. I like when he looks in my window and makes me laugh." I don't like his friends, though. She had never mentioned this. When I tried to ask her about it, she seemed nonchalant. She's older now and says she doesn't remember it. I'll never forget it. My son was around 3 at the time. Kept refusing to go downstairs as that's where Angel Man was, and Angel Man wanted to hurt the family.
Time to move.
A year ago my daughter was having night terrors. She was 4 at the time. Would wake up screaming every night around 3 a.m. My wife and I would go stay with her until she fell back asleep. We assumed she was just having nightmares, but one morning she had told me that she was afraid because there's a man in her closet that doesn't have a head who keeps waking her up.
What did you do about the headless man situation?
Not my kid, but a little girl in my son's kindergarten class told me she lives across the street from a cemetery. I asked her if it was spooky to live that close to a graveyard and she said very matter-of-factly, not during the day. But at night, they all walk up to our windows and scream.
Reminds me of a story a student of mine in Japan once told me. Her father was a caretaker of a temple and they lived on the grounds. The grounds included a cemetery. On certain holidays the Japanese leave offerings of food and drink on ancestors' graves. Unfortunately, this place being near forested mountains, the local wildlife included fairly large monkeys. They would apparently descend on the cemetery during these holidays as the night fell and people had left. And in the darkness they would scream and fight over the food left behind. That's a visual that never left me lol. I have an awesome video of my son. He was maybe 2 to 3 at the time. He was taking a quarter and trying to put in the slot just above the door handle of a closed closet. He kept repeating, his name, "Pay the lady, I pay her." When I asked what he was doing he responded, "I have to pay the lady in the closet." I asked him, "Why is there a lady in the closet?" He said, "She lives there. I pay her."
I'd be more annoyed that the closet demon has the audacity to charge your son to live in his closet. Who the F does she think she is?
Not said to me, but to one of my colleagues. She has 2 sons, and the younger started to have these terrible nightmares where he's being chased by someone with a huge knife and wants to murder him and all the kids. He would, as you can imagine, wake up screaming and refusing to go back to sleep. And then he asked his mum, "Mommy, is there a way how I could make myself not alive? I don't want to live like this anymore." I can't even imagine how his mum must feel when it's her child, but damn.
OMG, that's heartbreaking. I had a weird, short phase when I was 19 or 20 where I had these terrifying nightmares that kept me in that doom headspace even after waking up, and made me never want to sleep again. I thought I was going completely crazy and would never be able to sleep or feel peaceful relaxation again in my life. They ended as quickly as they started, but it was hell. I would never wish that on a little kid.
There are already much creepier ones, but still. We observe a man littering on our block. 3 Yo daughter. He just littered. Me. He did. Littering is bad. Daughter. He should be executed. By which she meant, specifically, having his head cut off. Me. Maybe not for a first offense.
My son was talking about his friend the upside-down clown while I was putting him to bed one night. Needless to say, not a fan of that concept.
Remember before I was a baby when I was a different little boy and I had a different mommy and daddy? No buddy, do you remember that? Only a little.
My GF's daughter used to talk about before I knew you, meaning her mother. Who was I before I knew you? What do you mean? I was somebody else, but I can't remember my name. Once when I was putting up a new smoke detector, she asked me what it was. I explained that it'd tell us or wake us up if there was a fire, and we could get out of the house. Oh good, so I won't burn up again, and happily skipped away.
I was talking to my son when he grabbed my face, got really close, and whispered, "Mommy, you're talking too loud. You'll wake up Abiyoyo." Me whispering, "Who's Abiyoyo, buddy?" Son whispering, "Abiyoyo is my friend." Me, "Where is Abiyoyo?" Son, "In the mountain. He's sleeping. We live near a large mountain range." Me, "Why do we have to be quiet?" Son, "He eats kids when they're too loud. Sometimes when we were too loud he would tell all of us to be quiet then run to the window to see if Abiyoyo was coming. For a while I was afraid of looking up Abiyoyo online for fear that it'll be some ancient demon or something. But my son kept bringing him up, so I finally got over myself and found out that Abiyoyo is a South African folktale about a giant who lives in a mountain who comes down to eat the village livestock. Afraid that he will eat the villagers next, they find a way to stop him. They read the book to him at school. Tears of joy.
Oh boy, I was waiting for the, how in God's name did my son know about this random folktale? But I'm glad there was a reasonable explanation.
My daughter was 4 and while we were eating breakfast one morning she says, "I was on a mountain once, and my dad died and then I woke up and was in this house with you and mama." Then we just sat there for a few seconds and looked at each other. Then she said she wanted to watch Paw Patrol.
Greater than then she said she wanted to watch Paw Patrol. Terrifying.
My son, when he was 3, told me he had a cloud sister with black eyes and teeth but she was nice. Freaked me the hell out.
My 5-year-old daughter is trying to process the knowledge that everyone dies. So she tends to casually drop stuff about me dying into normal conversation. I know this is her age-appropriate way of trying to process the concept of mortality, but it is so unbelievably ominous and it comes out of nowhere. "I like your pretty dress, Mommy. But you won't be able to wear it when you're dead. I love you, Mom. But I'll miss you so much when you're dead." She also once dropped an absolutely terrifying comment about snuggling me when I'm dead. ETA, I'm 28. Which in her mind is ancient. I am practically at death's door.
No, you'll be able to wear your pretty dress when you're dead. Don't let her scare you like that.
Happened just this week after I had a small procedure at my DRS office. My 2.5 years old was doing a checkup on me with his DRS kit and I made a joke asking if I was gone alive and he said, "No, Mom die." "Oh okay then," smiling face with tear. When I was 16 and my younger brother was 9 he once said with a dead straight face, and I quote, "If I was to murder you in your sleep no one would know or say it was me because I'm just a kid and kids can't kill people." I had to sleep with one eye open after that. Edit. Y'all are starting to make me think I'm gonna die tonight.
I think 9's a little too old to say things like that. Like if a 4-year-old said it, I'd be like he's 4, he don't know what he's saying. But 9? He knows.
Should I be scared?
My 5-year-old was speculating that the tooth fairy probably takes the teeth to put in her own mouth, so that she has millions of teeth in her mouth. Yikes.
That would be a good horror movie NGL.
My 3-year-old son was swinging a plastic sword around, almost hitting a bunch of stuff including his baby sister. So I told him if he doesn't stop swinging it around I was going to throw it away. His response back was, "If you throw my sword away, I'll go to the store, buy a real one and cut your head off."
Copy-paste from other times I've told the story here. Purple Mommy. When my son was first learning to talk, he would tell us about something called Purple Mommy. It could be an imaginary friend, but these details are a little bit creepy. Here's a few of the Purple Mommy details. Purple Mommy is all purple with long hair and bright all-white eyes. At the time he mixed up purple with black, so he could have meant she was all black. Purple Mommy picks him up at night, and turns off the lights. We would often find my son out of his crib in the morning, which would mean him crawling over the railing and to the ground, at a time when he was barely walking. Definitely found the lights in his room off a few times too, even though he's terrified if the dark. Purple Mommy needs a bandage because she has blood everywhere. Purple Mommy has no smile, meaning a mouth. Purple Mommy can take her head off. Purple Mommy really doesn't like Daddy. He told us all of this stuff for maybe a year or a little more. If we ever asked where she was, he'd always point to the same spot. A corner of the room behind his open closet door. He would also wake up crying almost every night during this time. Once, during a really rough night, my wife went to ask him what's wrong, and his answer was, Purple Mommy won't let me sleep.
My elder son was always saying there was a purple man in his room and he would scare my son. My wife would go up and ask where the purple man was. Always in the wardrobe. So she would open the little wardrobe doors and shout at the purple man to leave our son alone, and he would go. One day the son was running around in just his vest the way kids do when they are little, and the wife found strands of purple cotton on the vest. Now we didn't own anything that color, we didn't like purple clothes. She took them and put them in a little plastic bag to show me when I got home from work. That same day my son shouted the purple man was in the wardrobe again, and then the wardrobe fell over. On its own, missing my son by inches. We never heard of the purple man after that.
Oh wow, now that is scary.
My 3-year-old came up to me, gave me a hug, then whispered in my ear, "Don't go to work, you will die in a wall." I drive to work and work in construction. Decided to work from home that day.
Just a curiosity question. How do you do construction from home?
I do health and safety management, plenty of things I can do remotely. Hung up my tools a while ago.
Not my kid, but my youngest sister. Some info: my sister has a tendency to sleep talk about silly things like food and toys. One night when my family was staying at hotel and I had to share a bed with her, she sits up at 2 a.m., waking me up, and turns to me with her eyes closed. She then exclaims, "Name it's behind you. Look behind you," in a very scared and urgent tone. There was only a headboard and wall behind me, which I try to explain to her, but she just lays back down and continues to sleep. I did not get very much sleep that night though, lol.
My 1.5-year-old daughter at Christmas at my grandma's house. My grandpa died 2 years before my daughter was born. He had a favorite chair, he sat in it all day long. Usually nobody uses it, only the little kids spin around in it. So my daughter was headed towards the kitchen from the living room when suddenly she stopped and pointed at the chair. Man is sitting in chair. She left, came back 2 minutes later, stopped and pointed at the chair again. Man is sleeping. My husband and my brother were speechless. My husband kind of freaked out a little, he hates this stuff. But my mother, aunt and grandma were all happy that grandpa was still with us.
When my daughter was just 2, she said a couple of things that freaked me out. One night she was looking up at the full moon from a stairway landing window. I thought it was cute, so I went up and asked her what she was thinking. Imagining she'd say something like, "Is the moon really made of cheese, Daddy?" or something like that. Instead she looked at me and in a creepy old woman voice said, "We are all in the same cage." Like a good horror movie dad, I ran to the basement and pretended nothing happened.
My 3-year-old daughter told us at dinner the other night, "I had a family before this one." Then she looked down at her plate and said in a really sad-sounding voice, "They're dead now." To be clear, this is the only family she's ever had. No idea where she'd have got that idea. Edit: the bar for some of y'all to believe in reincarnation is shockingly *low.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.